Now that Jedi Battle Scars has been out for a little bit more than 2 weeks, I thought it was about time that I made a video giving my full, honest review with spoilers. So this is your spoiler warning. I'm going to be talking about what I liked about this book, what I didn't like about this book, and more. So if you haven't read it yet, and you would like to read it and you don't want to be spoiled, this is your time to click off. But if you don't mind spoilers or you've already read it, feel free to keep watching, and let's talk Jedi Battle Scars. I was fortunate enough to be able to get an early copy of this book. I got it about a week before the book came out, and I read it in basically a single sitting. I sat down in the evening after I'd gotten it, and I stayed up till 1 a.m. to read it. It was a relatively quick read. It didn't take me very long, but now that I've sat with it for a few weeks and chatted with a lot of people about it, we have a book club over on Discord that we've been talking about, I think I'm finally ready to talk about all my thoughts about this book. So, quick disclaimer before I start on everything. These are my opinions and my opinions alone. Different people like different stuff. If there's things I dislike that you liked or things that you dislike that I liked, that's totally fine. That's the fun of Star Wars and consuming media in general, is different people will enjoy different things. So my opinions aren't necessarily the right opinions. I'm just telling you how I feel about the book. So let's start off with the things I really enjoyed about this book. One of the major things I enjoyed about this book was just getting to see the Mantis crew be a family, including Merrin. One of my favorite things from the game was falling in love with this ragtag team of people that maybe didn't seem like they would mesh, but worked out really well. So one of my favorite parts of this book was just getting to see and get into the minds of the characters and how they felt about each other. Like, seeing how much Grease truly cares about Cal and Sarah and Merrin and just the whole crew warms my heart, because I freaking love Grease. He's one of my favorites. And also, I want to talk about one of my favorite parts of this book is the moment between Sarah and Merrin when they're on the stakeout. They're on a stakeout trying to figure out the best way to get into an Imperial base. And they just have such an amazing, relationship, this big sister, little sister kind of relationship that just made me, so happy, because so much of Merrin's drive is her missing her family and missing her sisters. And so getting this relationship with Sarah, it's just an adorable part of the book that I love so much. And so seeing the family dynamics and kind of how those have developed over the last few years that we haven't seen the Mantis crew was really, really nice and really cute. And it actually made me really sad that in the game we're going to see them broken up to some extent. Obviously, we know that we're going to be seeing Merrin, Grease, and Cal all together on the Mantis together because of the trailer that we got on Monday, but Sarah's a little bit somewhere else. But it was just, that was one of the parts of this book that I really, really enjoyed. Something else I also really enjoyed about this book that I know has kind of been iffy while there are other people who have enjoyed it is the way that the combat is written. I'm personally not really a big combat reader type person, and so a lot of combat when I read it kind of just gets jumbled in my head. But the way that the combat is written in this book is very clear, and especially if you're familiar with the gameplay and what happens in Fallen Order, it's really easy to read because so many of the things that you see happen in the combat, specifically what Cal does, are all things that we've seen in the game, or are mostly things that we've seen in the game. Every cool maneuver he does is something that you can do in the game, so it was very easy for me to picture it in my mind, which I really, really enjoyed. Also, some of my enjoyment of combat probably comes from the fact that we got so much Night Sister Merrin combat, from her choking out stormtroopers and purge troopers to her reanimating the dead, which I really hope we are going to get to some extent in Jedi Survivor. I'm not sure how that would work in the gameplay, but now that it's confirmed that she's going to be a companion character, I would love to see some aspect of that, especially at the end of the book where she's just reanimating one individual to help fight with her. I feel like that would be a really cool kind of concept, whether it's like you can reanimate someone you killed for a few seconds or something just to distract the enemy. I don't know how they'd put that in there, but just learning more about Night Sister magic and the way it can be utilized in combat was really freaking awesome. And so I hope we get to see more of that in the gameplay for Jedi Survivor coming in April, because it's just so amazing. I feel like the way it was written in this book was really, really interesting, and it sets a precedent for Night Sister magic, which I think is also cool. Something cool about this book is that it's really setting precedents for Night Sister magic and how it's used in combat, since we haven't really seen that very much in the canon of Star Wars. So all of that was very interesting and exciting for me as someone who really, really loves the Night Sisters. Something else I really enjoyed with this book that I've heard some people not liking very much, but I really enjoyed it, was all the little quibs and callbacks to the meme culture surrounding the game. Like things that weren't jokes necessarily in Fallen Order, but have been jokes like on the Reddit, around Twitter, around social media surrounding this game, like the pink poncho, our hatred for Ogdo Grease and his salt shaker and his love for salt and things like that. There were so many little things in this book that really called back that if you're really part of the Fallen Order community here on social media, or just have a general knowledge of the Fallen Order community of social media, that made me chuckle while I was reading, because it was just little things. I was like, haha, I've seen so many memes about that, and now it's canon that these are also things that the characters from the game are thinking about and making jokes about, and I just think that's really, really fun. The last thing I want to mention that I really, really enjoyed about this book is just getting into the minds of each of these characters. So much of Fallen Order is following around Cal and what's kind of going on in his head, because he's the self-insert in that game. And so it's really cool to be able to get into Grease's head or Sarah's head or Marin's head and kind of see where they're at as far as like their ambitions, how they think about the different members of the crew, how, like, one of the things I really enjoyed, which a lot of people have brought up that this is very prevalent in the High Republic books as well, that I haven't read yet that I need to, is just how each character from Cal, Marin, and Sarah, how their force power kind of feels to them, and how utilizing the force and fighting and all of that kind of stuff, how it, like, is prevalent in their mind, because it's not something we can conceptualize because we don't have the force or magic or whatever. And so it's really cool to kind of get a look into their heads and how that feels. Something else with getting into the heads of characters that I think is really nice about this book is a lot of it I think is going to help us understand where the characters are in Jedi Survivor, especially now that we know, like, Grease has probably gone on his own path to some extent in retirement, maybe owning a new saloon. Sarah has gone on her own path, going to build the library for the Jedi, which is something that's very prevalent in this book. And so I think all of that is going to really help us with understanding why those characters are where they are in Jedi Survivor. And I think that's really interesting because I feel like it will make it easier to accept. Like, we're not just gonna be like, Sarah abandoned Cal and the Mantis crew, what the heck? You know, like, that's not it. That Sarah has a dream and it's different than what Cal and Marin and Grease want to do, and so she's gonna go do it because they're all their own people and they're all adults and they can do that. And I think that's going to be a really big help while gaming, and I just really enjoyed getting into all their heads and getting to know them better, especially Grease. The Grease chapters, like, I laughed out loud so many times reading those. I also can't record a video about my opinions about Battle Scars without mentioning how freaking much I loved the cute little interactions with BD and the bogling that's on the Mantis ship. Those were adorable. I loved that so much, that there was just like these cute little critters running around the Mantis. So cute. Amazing. All right. Now on to the more nitty gritty things and what I personally didn't enjoy. There's a lot of how Marin's character was handled in this book that I personally didn't love. And maybe this is me self-projecting on what I want Marin to be because I've spent so much time thinking about her character, and we have so little on her from the game, so I have to take that into account, that some of it might just be like what I wanted her to be versus what she actually is. So let's talk about it. I know I'm not alone in feeling like the relationship between Marin and Fret was super rushed. This kind of bothered me at the beginning, but because other characters like Grease and Cal in the book itself acknowledged that this seemed really rushed, I was like, it's just a fling, whatever. They're just two hot people that were attracted to each other and they got into a room and things got hot and heavy, and I can live with that. It wasn't my favorite, but I could accept it as something that may happen. But that's not the part that bothers me the most about this relationship. A lot of what bothers me is what happened later down the road, especially when Fret became some level of a threat to the Mantis crew, to Marin's family. Because Marin's whole thing is family. Her whole driving center in this book and even in the original game is revenge for a family that she lost. Revenge for a family that she loved, that died, that she couldn't protect. And so she feels like she needs to avenge them because she couldn't save them when the massacre happened. And so I just couldn't see her putting her new family, who she loves and cares about, in potential harm's way without even telling them, knowing that they could potentially be walking into a trap, trusting someone that she's known for like a day, a few hours. I'm not sure what the timeline is on this. She literally buried the man that she trusted for years in the ground alive because she found out that he lied to her and he manipulated her. And so I just can't see Meryn finding out that Fret, like, didn't leave the Empire, and finding out that Fret was, like, not who she said she was and has been lying to this crew this whole time, and just, like, brushing it off like it's nothing, not telling Cal or the Mantis crew. Like, that just, it doesn't sit right with me. Like, loyalty is one of Meryn's huge things. Like, family and loyalty. Those are, like, the only things we learn about her in the first game, is that those things are important to her. So I, like, even later in the story, not just learning Fret is an Imperial, but also later in the story, after Fret literally leaves Meryn's butt because she learned that her new true love exists, like, isn't dead, and runs away with her to try to protect her and totally forgets about Meryn. Like, I can't, like, I loved that when Fret came back to the ship, Meryn was pissed. Like, Meryn was like, you're, like, I'll heal your friend, but I'm mad at you. Like, we're not talking, I'm not giving you the time of day, whatever. That was perfect. That's exactly what I wanted, because Meryn, like, she's like, cool, you're hot, like, we had a connection, but you literally betrayed me and left me for dead on this planet. And I healed your friend, but I'm not doing anything more for you. So when they're on the planet and in the baths, and Fret comes up and is like, hey, can you forgive me? And Meryn's like, cool, whatever. Which, Meryn should have had Fret beg on her knees to forgive her for what she did to Meryn. Because, she screwed Meryn over. Like, she screwed her over. And so the fact that Meryn gives in so easily and allows Fret to come back, and then they, like, kiss and make out, it's like, no, I don't understand why. And maybe that's just who Meryn is, but I just can't accept that. Like I talked about before, this is the lady that buried the man she trusted who had been manipulating her, and she found out he was a manipulator and a liar and buried him in the freaking ground. Like, she's not just going to forgive and make out after such a betrayal. I guess one of my biggest problems with this relationship, and I think it's just that if this story was written as if Fret was supposed to be someone that was kind of manipulating Meryn to some extent to get what she wants, and then Meryn finds out she was kind of being manipulated and lied to, and then goes, oh shoot, the exact same thing that happened with Malicos is happening again. I need to reevaluate my discernment skills and what's going on. That wouldn't bother me as much. It's the fact that this relationship is supposed, or at least the way that I read it, is that it's supposed to be a positive relationship. Like, no one is like, oh, Meryn, this might be a toxic attachment that you're having to this individual that has betrayed you, lied to you, and manipulated you to some extent to get what they want. It's that this is great representation, which I was really excited to get some more LGBTQ plus representation, because we need good representation of that type. And I was excited to get it with Meryn because I've been headcanon her as pansexual since, like, the day I met her. But, like, it feels like one of my biggest problems is that it's not read in the book as being a toxic, bad relationship. Like, the attachment was super, super fast. It was like love and attached, like, in the first few hours, you know, they were like super attached. And then we learned that Fret lied to the crew, and then Fret leaves Meryn to die and ignores Meryn's booty because she found out her love exists, you know, and like, just, and then she, like, crawls back and is like, well, but we can still make out even though my true love is literally in the same town as us, you know. Like, the fact that no one points out that the relationship is a mistake, or is something that should not be viewed as a positive relationship kind of bothers me, because especially if there's kids reading this or people reading this that are maybe in that kind of relationship or whatever, I don't want them reading this and going, that was a positive relationship, I want that kind of relationship, because it's just not. That's not what love is. And I feel like we kind of got more of that with Cal and Marin, is like what true love and care for somebody else is, even if it's just in a friendship way. You get that a lot more with Marin and Cal, and I kind of wish that after the whole debacle of Fret leaving and leaving Marin and Cal to fight all the Purge Troopers and everything by themselves, that we had cut off Fret entirely. Sorry. We had cut off Fret entirely as a romantic interest and just kept Marin kind of like, okay, whatever, we can be friends, because I think that's fine. Like, at least she agreed to be friends. And explored the relationship, even if it's not a romantic one, between Marin and Cal, because I feel like that would have been a good entry into Jedi Survivor and what we're going to be seeing in Jedi Survivor. Like, something else that bothered me that's kind of on the same vein is we see Marin get so powerful. Once she finds her flame because she talks to Fret and gets to let out her emotions, which I think is a positive thing. I think that's a positive impact that the Fret relationship had on her. That she becomes so powerful and so strong. She learns how to use the reanimation spell without having to use the orb. She becomes very confident in her magic and her abilities and getting places. She learns, like, that she can heal people with her magic, like, all this stuff. She becomes such a more confident woman, because at the beginning of the book, she's, like, trying to figure out her magic. She's trying to figure out what's going on with her and why she can't channel her magic that she had so strong before. And so it just feels crappy that you have this very powerful woman that's finding herself and learning about her skills and abilities and that she's a strong woman and all this stuff, to then fold to, like, this individual just because they're hot. Like, if this wasn't a woman that she was romancing, I feel like if it was a man, that there would be, like, more upset, you know, like this powerful, strong woman than this sexy guy that's manipulated her for, like, for the last few chapters of the book and lied to her and deserted her and all that stuff. If she just folded back into his arms after the fact without even, like, giving him very much of a smack on the wrist, you know, like, I feel like that would be not okay, and it just doesn't sit right with me. So to end things off, the final thing that really bothered me also has to do with the Fret relationship, is that by the end of the book, we get a lot of really cute moments with Marin and Cal, especially at the end, which I've talked about before. I wish we had just cut off Fret entirely after the whole debacle with the fifth brother, like at the Imperial place where we found Fret's true love. I wish it had just been cut off for Marin there as far as their romantic interactions. And obviously they could still be friends. That's cool. The Mantis crew can still help Fret and the lizard lady. But I feel like the fact that Marin continued this, like, sexual relationship, I don't know what to call it, physical relationship with Fret, even after that fact, while we were getting these kind of, like, acknowledgement of Marin realizing that Cal has feelings for her and Cal realizing he has some level of feelings for Marin, even if they don't take this anywhere in Jedi Survivor, it kind of made Cal feel like second fiddle, and I really don't like that, especially if we were supposed to get the vibe of this could lead somewhere into the next game, because then it felt like if Marin truly is still romancing this person that betrayed her and manipulated her and potentially almost got her and Cal murdered, like, or the whole crew murdered, you know, like this individual who almost got her entire family murdered, and she's, like, kind of flirting with Cal, and even though she chooses Cal at the end, it still kind of feels cruddy, you know, like, if she finds out Cal has potentially an interest in her from Fret, and instead of going, oh, Cal cares about me, I should look into this relationship with Cal, she goes, nah, Cal might be interested in me, and I'll kind of flirt with him a little bit, and we'll have a little banter, but I'm still going to make out with with Fret on the side anyway, even though, like, I wish that had been, instead of Fret, it had turned to Marin and Cal's relationship and their friendship and how much they care about each other, because that's something that's prevalent and beautiful and so cute throughout the entire book. And so I kind of feel like it was tarnished at the end because of some of the scenes that happen in the end with goodbye kisses and hands on thighs, and a lot of what happens at the end kind of diminishes what that relationship could have been, even if it wasn't a romantic one between Cal and Marin. And so that's something that I kind of wish we had gotten, because it's there. It just was overshadowed a little bit. So there's my honest review and what I think of the book. I think it was okay. I think it did a good job of kind of setting up where each member of the Mantis crew is going to be in the next game. Grease doing his retirement at a saloon of some kind, Sarah working on her Jedi library, and Marin and Cal continuing to explore the galaxy together to put a thorn in the Empire's side. Also, it gives you the origin story for why Grease is missing one of his arms and now has a prosthetic, so I think for that fact, it's also really good at setting up Jedi Survivor. So honestly, do I think you're going to need to read this book to play Jedi Survivor? No. Obviously, there's some things in the book that are going to be kind of nice to know for Jedi Survivor, but I do not think it will be a requirement. If you have the time and the interest, I think you should totally pick it up. It has its amazing moments. The way it's written is very memey and fun, and it's just kind of a cool read if you're interested. I know there were multiple parts where I was sitting and laughing at the book and just smiling, so I would recommend it if you're interested. There were things about it that I didn't care for, and what I had for Marin in my head just didn't play out in the book, and that's totally on my bias. So if you want to give a shot at it and read it for yourself, I totally would recommend you to do so. And feel free to join the book club. Link to it is down below. So what was your favorite and least favorite part of the book? Let me know down in the comments. If you want to keep up to date with Jedi Survivor news and gaming and me, feel free to drop a sub below. But that being said, thank you for hanging out and watching the video. May the Force be with you. Goodbye!